Welcome into HogvilleNET YouTube Live and good afternoon. I'm Kevin McPherson, your host. We have really spent the last week probably gathering intel, putting together some updates as Arkansas's class of 2026 recruiting heats up. It's heating up around the country. Visit dates. You've seen a few commitments already off the board, including J.J. Andrews, the first high-level five-star player to commit, and that was back in mid-May. So Arkansas and John Calipari off to a great start for a second consecutive season. But, we've been monitoring, again, the visits that have been announced, some that are still not announced, but we're waiting on and anticipating. But the past week, on these segments, we spent more time, talking about, what NBA scouts saw with several current Razorback players and J.J. Andrews at an elite camp last week. We had a full segment devoted to J.J. Andrews once one of the recruiting services updated its prospect rankings and failed to, acknowledge JJ with the proper credit he deserves. But on the same day, you had a mock draft come out that had JJ ranked very highly in the 2027 draft, some other stuff. So most of the segments lately, we talked about the SEC schedule once we learned of the dates and went through that. I even had projections for Arkansas's final SEC record, 18-game slate. We already knew the opponents, the dates released. So the last week, we've spent a lot of time talking about different things and not really had an intel swing. And I've had a lot of those. And I've been gathering it. I've been hinting toward it because I've said in each of the episodes, pretty soon we're going to talk about at least one or two more visits that Arkansas is efforting. One of those I tweeted about yesterday. Another one I haven't put a tweet out, so you're going to hear about that for the first time today. Dates are still being ironed out on some of these, so we don't have the dates to give you right now, but they're coming, and Arkansas is getting close on a couple of them. Again, one I talked about yesterday on social media, one I did not. And then Arkansas has been named the leader by one of my sources. It's the first time I've heard Arkansas named as the leader for this particular priority recruit, top 10 rated player. So we're going to get into that. Certainly, there are other opinions that another team leads there. So we're going to share some of that. Tyron Stokes, the number one player in the country, a five-star, the highest of five stars. Go Hogs, woo pig sui. Jamie Brown, thank you for the comment. We might try to do a little better job today with some of the comments. If you want to ask questions or share things, I'll do my best. You know how it is with me. It's hit and miss, mostly miss. And I've had a confidence level on a lot of players that I've updated and talked about on these shows. I have a published article over at HogvilleNET. It's also been published on KNDBA, Pig Trail Nation, where I give a 1 to 10 confidence level on Calipari's ability to close the deal. Not necessarily that Arkansas leads or doesn't lead for players. It's not a scale rating that. It's more about, Kevin, you the man. All right, thank you. Appreciate that. No, you're the man, Jonathan. Love your updates, Kevin. Thank you. Appreciate that. But I've got so much information today that I'm actually going to do a 1.0 and a 2.0. There's too much for one segment. So my next segment, whether I do it on Sunday, tomorrow, or Monday morning, or sometime Monday, we'll have more information, more intel on Arkansas's targeted recruits, priority guys. So we're going to get about half of it done today. So I'm going to tell you a few things. This is source information I've been working on. Again, I've been kind of teasing it on these segments. We're going to have some intel for you. But I've also talked to Arkansas's coaching staff. And I've been waiting to get some updates from that perspective to kind of put everything together. So where I've mostly spent May and June and July kind of piecemealing intel daily, I thought, you know what, let's compact a little bit. Let's gather some stuff. Sometimes you run the risk of stuff becoming old news if you wait too long with it. But everything I'm going to share now is still relevant and timely. But I've also talked to the staff. So some of the stuff that I share with you, I'll be able to reference that the staff, but this is what I, confirmed or was able to, get from the staff. Some things I'll have to leave out in terms of it, because there are other sources weighing in. I might just refer to it as a source, and I won't tell you whether or not the staff agrees with it or doesn't. Some things, if I, again, acknowledge the staff, it means that I'm making that direct connection. On some other things, I won't be able to make the direct connection because they don't want me to in a public forum. So that's how we're going to do this. But several things here. Let's start. I guess we're going to start with the premise that Arkansas is the leader based on a source I recently spoke to. So I reaffirmed this yesterday. Um, but Fandion, the 7'1" center, 280 pounds out of Iowa United Prep, we know John Calipari has prioritized him. Houston, I think there's a crystal ball prediction for him to Houston. The scuttlebutt amongst most of the national recruiting analysts is that Houston's the team to beat. We know Arkansas is right up there at the top. You hear UConn. So several things. The source that thinks Arkansas is in the lead has told me, this is the first source I've had, or anything, not just my source, but I haven't seen anywhere that Arkansas is the perceived leader here for Fandion. But this source is telling me that he thinks Arkansas leads, and it will likely end up being Arkansas based on the NIL offers that he's heard to this point for Fandion from Houston, from Arkansas, and a couple other teams. The sources also told me that Kansas is in the mix here. So I'm not sure how much I've seen Kansas tied to it. Now, this is an Adidas 3SSB player, or was. He pulled out of the Adidas circuit at the very end of July and went and played on the Made Hoops thing, so that he could be in that Augusta, South Carolina, North Augusta, South Carolina area where the Nike EYBL was. We talked about all that, but there might have been some stuff going on there with Adidas. So I don't know, and I don't even know how much that would impact Kansas. But Kansas is in the mix. Kentucky's obviously got a visit set up, scheduled with Deontay as well. But the sources tell me, based on the NIL offers that he's heard. Now, he did not share those numbers with me. He said that without him. He didn't. Other than the offers he's heard are comparable. It's all leads based on Calipari's track record and some other things. Okay. One opinion. Remember, there are other opinions out there, and most that I've heard are that Houston leads. This is new. This is a trusted source, though. It's good information. Okay, so that's one thing. But I want to remind everybody, if you look at big man recruiting with Calipari, when you look at priority targets, we know he landed Paulo Samito in the spring. This was not a priority targeted player that he pursued in the fall recruiting leading up to the early period. The players, even on the high school level, that you're targeting with nice NIL offers relative to your valuation promises or evaluations that you establish, then your NIL promises to the player are going to correlate. Arkansas hasn't overpaid. They're not going to overpay, and they're not going to allow themselves to be used as a pawn to drive up NIL for any player. That's just not how it's been. But if you look at the big men they've pursued, Chris Sinak in the last recruiting cycle, Arkansas for a while was the perceived leader. Then it became Houston. And what I was told from a very reliable source, it couldn't be much more reliable, that Houston upped its NIL offer. And it put beyond, I guess, where Arkansas and maybe other programs, LSU at one point was thought to be the leader. Then it was Arkansas. Then in the end, it was Houston. That's where Sinak ended up. Then after that, Mohamed Silla, just 6 weeks later, Arkansas got in on him. And there was a private commitment other than Arkansas was going to have a limit on NIL, and Georgia Tech, we talked about as a threat with potentially NIL money to burn to go after him, raise the stakes there, and Georgia Tech ends up with him. So we've seen John Calipari, the limited amount of players he takes out of the transfer portal, most of it, the vast majority of that's been center forward, big men, post players. He's not afraid to pass on being priced out. Not that Arkansas can't spend the NIL money. They have limits, and it makes sense because they want to make sure they're fortifying their roster and getting quality throughout and not loading up on certain guys. It creates more than just a money issue. It's also maybe what other players are looking around thinking about how much you paid for one guy and not me. So there's always going to be some level of that, but I think Arkansas does a good job, Calipari, with his formula. So I'm just cautioning everybody. Fandion, big men can command a little more NIL money because they're at a premium. They don't grow on trees. Other positional groups, there might be a greater depth of quality there to choose from, and so it's easier not to maybe keep those NIL dollar amounts down for some. But big men, it's a little more difficult. So I just caution that, regardless of what the source is saying now about the NIL offers that he's heard for Deontay being comparable. All it takes is that last late surge, or at some point a program decides they're going to pay more. If that's the difference, and that's what it takes, Arkansas has not shown under Calipari to be willing to do that. There may be a couple of exceptions so far when I think of a Nate Ament and the hefty amount Arkansas was willing to go there. Caleb Wilson is an example in the last recruiting cycle where Arkansas wasn't going to play that game and backed off, letting him come in for a visit. And that ended up going away, even though there were 3 different visit dates planned and a couple of those announced. So sometimes these things take shape and take hold and take over. So something to keep in mind there with Fandion. One other thing I will tell you is it's been a little conflicting. Deani told me, what was it, over a week ago, and I put this out on Twitter, talked about it on one of these shows, that he changed his Arkansas visit date to September 12th through the 14th. That's a weekend where Arkansas football will be on the road. So no home game in that fan atmosphere. And then I think I told you guys a day later, his guardian, Alex Victor, reached out and said, hey, by the way, dates are still, they're still tentative or subject to change. And I speculated, he's trying to keep those visit dates not public, although the player stepped out and not only gave us the Arkansas visit date, but the Kentucky visit date, his Houston official visit date. We reported all that. And that maybe the Guardian's just trying to protect the publicly known dates because they're trying to bring in as many high major and Division I programs as they can. Once the recruiting live period starts back up in early September, they want to get coaches out to Iowa United Prep and, give some exposure to their program. And so, okay, I get all that. I've now got a second source outside of the Guardian telling me that the September 12th through 14th visit date for Fandion is not fully set in stone, that it might get moved. Okay, a couple of things here. When people hear that, they're like, oh, this sounds kind of shaky. Well, maybe. I doubt it. The way I'm understanding this, the source says they're still considering what's best, what visit slotting would be best to maximize the visit. So it could be that it sticks September 12th through 14. Keep an eye on that August 29-31 date, which would be really early, and put Arkansas ahead, a little bit ahead of the game there in terms of getting them on campus. That was what was originally planned. But also keep in mind that it may not stick with September 12th through 14th. Just something to think about. There are later dates, obviously, and he could be brought in maybe for a weekend where Arkansas's got the fan base, a football game they're hosting, yada yada. That might be more something that's more attractive. So I mentioned I threw Kansas in there. We know Kentucky's got a visit date. Houston, as the schedule that Deani sent to me, was getting the last official visit. We know he took an unofficial visit to Houston last week. I think it was a week ago, 8 days ago, Friday. And then he was on SMU's campus the following day. We're in the middle of a recruiting dead period, by the way, August 4th through the 20th. So no visits. You can have contact. You can talk. And I can tell you this. You have one source I told you that thinks Arkansas is in the lead here. He's heard the NIL numbers. If those are accurate, he says he believes they are. It's comparable around the board, and he thinks Arkansas is the front runner. The other thing I will tell you is I think Arkansas staff is confident where they sit right now with Fandion. So there's that. All right, let's move on. Abdu Tore, class of 2026, 6'5", 6'6" wing, Notre Dame High School in Connecticut. Arkansas's made him a priority. He took an unofficial visit. We first reported that over a year ago. He's coming in for October in October, and he was there for the football weekend when Arkansas hosted LSU. Chris Sinek Jr., who we was talking about, was his official visit date, class of 2025. Now a Houston Cougar. Hogs will again face him in December. But Torre was on campus as an unofficial visitor, class of 2026. He is a composite national number 23, a 5-star, kind of in a similar rankings range of what we saw with the wings that Calipari first had committed and or signed with Kentucky and brought him to Arkansas with him, Carter Knox and Billy Richmond III. So a couple of things here. One is you're thinking you've already got J.J. Andrews, the top wing in the country. I look more at Tyron Stokes, the number 1 rated player. You can call him a wing. I think he's a point forward or a combo. JJ to me, he might project NBA wise as a big guard, but for now, 3-and-D wing, and he's a wing. And Torre is also a big guard and wing. You're saying, why two? Why are you doubling up? Because Calipari has proven annually for decades that he can recruit high-level guys that play at similar positions. And just what's better than one in that regard? Double it up. And so this is a guy that's been a priority at every turn. Arkansas has been courtside to watch him, whether it was Adidas 3SSB, those Scholastic events that played out in June when we reported here that assistant coach Chuck Martin went to Philadelphia for that Scholastic event to watch him compete. It continued in July. And I reported, I think 2 weeks ago on this segment and on that in that article, that recruiting article that's still posted at hogville.net and at KNWA Pig Trail Nation, that Tore was interested in. He was wanting, really trying to get back to Arkansas for an official visit. So we've already published this; it's already out there. Well, yesterday I followed up with a dude to say, hey, let's see where things stand here, and he told me flat out, yeah, I'm definitely coming to Arkansas, and he plans to drop his announcement for the visit dates tomorrow on Sunday. So here's what I can follow up with. In addition to him telling me that, I tweeted out the quote that's out there. In addition to that, I now have a source that's telling me not only is it true, but that they're still ironing out the final date, what date they want to settle on there. And so that was as of Friday. 2 days later, Sunday, he's supposed to make the announcement. That means they got to get it figured out for him to be able to do that. All right. So, could there be a delay there? I'm just letting you know, if you were thinking by him saying Sunday that the dates were already ironed out and finalized, I'm told by another source, Tore didn't tell me this, but the other source did, that they're still finalizing that. So, maybe they get that done and figured out in time for him to drop that announcement Sunday. Maybe it carries out a bit beyond that if they don't have it ironed out. That's a pretty fast turnaround if they don't have the date solidified. But everyone's in agreement. He's coming to take an official visit to Arkansas. That's the big point. And so he's a guy that on a scale of 1 to 10 in my confidence level that Calipari can close the deal, I've been in a 6.5. With Air Fandion, I was at a 6. So based on the new information on Diane, I'm going to bump Diane up to a 7, and I'm going to join Abdu Tore as a 7. I'm moving him up from 6.5 to 7. So we got both players right now based on new information. My confidence level in Calipari getting this done bumps up. And part of it with Diane, we already knew he's coming in for a visit. Tore, we knew he was working on it. He's still trying to get it finalized, but he's now on the record saying, I'm definitely coming back. And now the sources tell me, yeah, that's happening. It's just we're finalizing it. It increases my confidence level as we move forward. The only player I have ranked higher than these guys is J.J. Andrews, who's already committed. I've got him at a 9.999 on a scale of 1 to 10, only because he still has to formally sign. He has to wait till November to do that. We know wild, crazy stuff happens in recruiting. Don't see anything like that with J.J., but you never know. All right, so we bumped these guys up. At Tore telling me he's coming. And the only other thing I'll add to that is, UConn is basically 30 minutes. That campus is 30 minutes from where he plays. And we know UConn's been involved. There are some out there. I'm told, I was asked about this earlier today by a Razorback fan, said, I've heard from others that maybe UConn's not really pursuing him that heavily. Yeah, UConn is pursuing him that heavily. That's one to really keep an eye on. That's, the same way that we look at J.J. Andrews being close, staying close to home. Of course, he's a legacy. His dad was an All-American football player at Arkansas, but it's close to home. And so that, as great as Calipari is as a recruiter, everything else, that helps, right? It helps. And so I'm not going to call UConn the leader here, but I will say this. I think it probably comes down to Arkansas and UConn. There's some other teams in the mix here. Believe it or not, some left coast teams. Oregon's been in play. There's some others in the Big Ten, as well as the ACC and the Big East. So you got a lot of schools looking at this player and trying to get in the mix here at the end. But I think at the end of the day, if I were calling it co-leaders, I would say it's UConn and Arkansas or vice versa. I think it's real close between those two right now. That's where I have it for now with Abdu Tore. And again, he's explosive. Has a big motor, and the kind of guy that when I went back, we started talking about him about this time last year when he played so well in that Under Armour Elite 24 All-Star game, going up against 5 stars in the 2025 class, and really showed out. Nate Ament was in that game. Sean Abayev, some of the top players, Malachi Marino, a lot of really good top 25, top 30 level guys from 2025. He really stood out. Very efficient shooting, had a double-figure scoring game, hit the game-winning shot. Big in an elam ending situation where he hit the game winner in a game I think that at that time was tied. So he hit the game winner in a tie game. Anyway, this is a really good player, and you understand why Arkansas has made him a recruiting priority. Someone I think making a comment here that maybe Danny Hurley at UConn's not fully bought into Tore. Well, they're pursuing him, and it's not a faint of heart pursuit. So I don't know, I don't know if Hurley mentioned something offhand to somebody and or what. I mean, I can't speak to that. I don't know, but thank you for the comment and adding to this because I respect all other opinions. I'm just told based on my source information that UConn's thick in it still. So, and I'm not sure who out there how long ago it was that maybe something was said that UConn was backing off. Maybe that's old info. Hadn't been out there. It's been out there. That was a while back, and I don't know. I just had a Razorback fan, so they saw this elsewhere. They didn't timestamp it for me, so I'm not sure when. Maybe recently. All right, let's move on. But Abdu Tore, this is good news. All right, here's something that a player we haven't talked about as much lately. We certainly talked about him. This is more intel for you. Arkansas and Caleb Holt, who I have as the number 2 player in the country in a tie with Jordan Smith Jr., who we're going to talk about in the next segment. I have some updates with him and others. I'll run through the list of guys we're going to talk about on my next segment because it's too much intel for one. We're already 21 minutes in. This one's going to carry on a little bit. Caleb Holt, 6'5" guard out of the Atlanta area. Prolific prep, which has now moved from the West Coast into his area. I think will be in Florida. That's where it'll be located this year. So he's transferring from Grayson High School to Prolific Prep for his senior year. Everything 6'5" guard has been playing kind of a combo role. When you look at some of his more recent outings, he won 17U Game Elite, led that team to the 17 and under championship on the Adidas circuit. When you look at his recruitment, you hear a lot about it. And visits have been set up, some taken, visits set up. When you look at Caleb Holt and teams like Kentucky in the mix, Kansas in the mix, Auburn, Alabama, those are the ones you hear the most. A group of other teams, you haven't heard much Arkansas, but I told you guys back at the U19 World Cup, when Arkansas assistant coach Chuck Martin went over for that back in, late June, early July, that he was one of the priority targets. He was one of 4 in the class of 2026, Tyron Stokes, Jordan Smith Jr., Caleb Holt, and Brandon McCoy Jr. Those were the 4 class of 2026 players. And the staff informed me not only that Martin was headed over there to recruit and evaluate for Arkansas, but they considered all 4 of those guys to be priority targets moving at that time and then moving forward. And so you hear that, but then you don't hear Arkansas mentioned with Caleb Holt very much. Holt told me back in May that he was waiting on Calipari to kind of raise the conversation again about him coming in to visit because he'd like to visit Arkansas. Well, that's been a while, right? That was May. Staff tells me what they told me June leading into July. He's still a priority. I can now tell you a source is telling me now that Arkansas is, if they're not finalizing a visit date, they are working at setting one up. And so that is a mutual thing. That is not Arkansas's efforting and trying to talk him into still interested in. No, the conversation is this is headed toward a visit date. I don't know that I've seen that anywhere else relative to Arkansas lately. If that's out there somewhere, I haven't seen it. I searched for that before I came on. So we'll claim that as some intel here. Don't have a date for you. Remember, we're still waiting on Abdu Tore. We're waiting on Cole Clower. I've got more information on him. Again, that'll be in tomorrow's segment. We're going to talk about him today. But just so you know, these are some of these you've heard about. You've heard about Clower for over a week, that he's working on getting a visit date set with Arkansas. Arkansas made the late offer. Now we know Tore may announce it as soon as tomorrow. So it's still intel, even though we don't have the dates yet. It's just a progression. Process versus results, right? I talk about it all the time. We build to these things. That's why I go back and reference what we talked about before. Arkansas staff still prioritizing Caleb Holt. What he told me back in May. It's leading up to something more, maybe. I'm hearing, a source is telling me, they've got it on really good authority, there is a visit date being worked out with Caleb Holt. If you look at the National Recruiting Services, not only he showed well also in that U19 World Cup in Switzerland, not just leading Game Elite to that Adidas championship. This guy, to me, is a fearless defender. He has got elite defensive possibilities. He's just starting to show that offensively. I understand why he's playing some lead guard. He can set guys up. He has great court awareness. He's a willing passer. He is an electric scorer. He's athletic. He's got good size at 6'5", 6'4", 6'5". So backcourt versatility, a lot of skill, and just not raw talent, sheer talent. And then the defensive side, I think, also bodes well for him. Again, Kansas, Kentucky, Bama, and Auburn are the teams you hear about the most, among others. But Arkansas now working on a visit date with Caleb Holt. Now, this is like anything else. Just like anything else, if it gets to a point where Arkansas is feeling squeezed over NIL or something unreasonable, we may never hear a date go public for the visit. I was not shared what the potential visit dates might be. Only that it is in a serious effort right now, and both sides are working on this. And so that would be a big deal. That means Arkansas, anytime Calipari can get a player on campus, I say advantage Calipari. That doesn't mean that you're not playing from behind, and that you'll, in the end, reach the top and win out. But I think advantage Calipari if he can get him on campus, and Arkansas is everything that. I've got him ranked the second best player in the class, tied with Jordan Smith Jr., right behind Tyron Stokes. I've got J.J. Andrews fourth. You know that I put out a top 25 in late July. Most services have him in the top 5. One has him at 6th, one has him at 5th, another one has him at 4th. So right there in a cluster, an average of 5th, I've got him higher than that. The most recent, that mock draft that came out, Jonathan Washburn, the Bleacher Report, who I highly respect his work, as does NBA.com, the official website of the league. They publish his mock drafts. They lead with them when they talk mock drafts. He had him as the second overall pick. He had JJ 4th. So he's got him slotted exactly how I have him ranked for their class in that 2027 draft. So we'll keep an eye on the Caleb Holt situation. I've published a confidence level, we haven't talked about him in a while, of 2.0 on that scale of 1 to 10. I'm going to now increase that to a 4. I'm going to double it up. I'm still below the midline. I need to hear that a visit date gets established. Again, it may never see the light of day if they can't get, whether it's NIL or something else. Arkansas is not going to be caught up in a game that helps somebody else out. All right, nearly 27 and a half minutes in. Thank you for joining me on HogvilleNET YouTube Live. We've got more to talk about. Let's move forward. The number one player in the country, Tyron Stokes, a 5-star. We know that Arkansas has been involved. You continue to hear kind of behind the scenes that Arkansas is up there in that top 4, maybe the top 2, according to some opinions. But I talked to the folks that cover Kentucky, and multiple of them, not just one, and they kind of feel like Kentucky's in the lead there, and that at Kentucky's position with NIL, they're going to be able to pay him a handsome NIL package to get him, and that puts him in the lead. He's on the Nike circuit, the number one player in the country. Nike would probably like to, figure out a way to entice him to stay with the Nike program, because we know Louisville, his hometown where he's already visited, is an Adidas school. Kansas, he took a visit in May, is an Adidas school. He visited Kentucky in June, or excuse me, I think it was June. And now his mom has talked of visits to USC, to Gonzaga, Oregon. Maybe those happen, maybe they don't. Maybe one or two or all of them happen. Who knows? But you still hear Arkansas in there, and there's this idea that Arkansas is right there in it. Well, a couple of things here. While I don't discount that, I think there's enough smoke there to believe that's true. I also believe that right now Kentucky probably is in the lead. How much they're gonna allocate out of their revenue share towards basketball is going to be more than what most SEC schools are going to do. That's one thing, and they've already got the proof of pocket before revenue share became a thing that they're going to overplay, and they'll have one of the highest roster purses out there in NIL because they've done it already. We've seen examples of it. We've talked about it. So, that combination of things leads me to think, okay, maybe it is Kentucky in the lead. I had a source tell me in the last 24 hours that they heard that the NIL package, and this is what I don't know, I could not get this clarified, $3.8 million. And it's an odd number to me. That seems, why not 4? Why not 3.5? Why not 4.5? 3.8 million. So I don't know. That specific sounds like an offer, and it sounds like it's coming from Kentucky. They didn't clarify, just that they heard 3.8 million for Tyron Stokes. And I asked him to clarify that, and I'm still waiting on a response. Is that the offer? Is that from Kentucky, or is that what his asking price is? To me, if you're having an asking price as a prospect, you're probably rounding it up, or you're probably at a number that sounds like a number that 3.8 sounds very specific and almost sounds like an offer by some accumulation of NIL putting it all together. But here's what this makes me believe. I don't think John Calipari is going to if that's accurate. If that's accurate, if that's it, I would be surprised if Calipari and Arkansas would be in the mix for that. I know Arkansas. There's been talk that he wants to visit Arkansas. Arkansas made him a priority recruit. Remember, Calipari was courtside for everything he did, and that carried through to end of July. So at the end of the day, just like with Nate Ament, when you started hearing that escalated NIL, Arkansas had a strong offer and they stayed in it till the end. So this could be a situation where either that number, here's something else I'll tell you. I have it on good authority. Arkansas staff has heard this number out there. So it's not just that I heard it. That's I'm not the only one to hear that. All right. So there's that. But Calipari, as far as we know, because now we're moving closer to mid-August. We're not there yet, but we're getting closer. Late July is the last we saw him courtside every time. So now we're just trying to piece things together, not seeing a presence because he can't. It's a dead period anyway. Now we're trying to figure out, where is Arkansas still in it? Are they really still in it? Is that number correct? Because if that number is right, that would be an exception to the rule for Calipari so far in what he's done to keep himself in the running for a situation like that. I can't say that they wouldn't do it, but it flies contrary to what I know the staff has told me in general on some of these steep price tags. They really believe in not funneling a ton of money on one guy, but making sure they spread out and get quality and build the roster the way they want to. They're limiting it to 8 or 9 guys. They're not trying to spread the NIL out so much where they've got 10 or 11 playable dudes. Kind of keeping it at 8 or 9 so they can go and get quality for that top 2 rotation. But at the front end of that, they're not jumping out there, and you hear numbers like this, they just really haven't been involved in something like that. So if that's true, I'll be surprised if Arkansas is truly in it. That doesn't mean but I'd be surprised if Calipari believes that that's what he's up against, that he'd bring the player in for a visit. That's what my opinion is. We'll see what plays out. We'll see if Stokes ends up scheduling an Arkansas visit and keeps that visit date. It means one of two things. If that number's correct, Arkansas is willing to go there. Or it means maybe that's high and Arkansas is in the range where they feel comfortable they can still land the player even if they're maybe not fully in the lead on him. Again, those are just, kind of some of my speculations based on how that looks. All right, 33 minutes in, just over that. Thank you for joining me on HogvilleNET YouTube Live. I'm Kevin. If you haven't done it already, it helps us out. Please hit subscribe, like, and share. And so we'll see with Tyron Stokes what really shakes out there. Again, Arkansas is in a great position at wing. J.J. Andrews, Abdu Tore. But Tyron Stokes is just different. I'm not saying that he's that much better than a J.J. Andrews. I'm saying positional versatility. He can play on the ball. He can defend multiple positions. And so 1 through 3 on either side of the ball, I feel comfortable with him at 6'7", 240 and the skill set. I mean, this guy shot 44% on high volume from 3 on the EYBL. There's just not a way you can twist this and say this guy's not a super talented guy and maybe worthy of a $3.8 million price tag. You can't rule that out. And you're always worthy of it if someone's willing to step out and pay you that much to come to their school, right? And we know A.J. DeBonsa is the top projected guy last year, got a big payday to go to BYU. And those guys, not coincidentally, but they were teammates in spring and summer before DeBonsa timed out on that. All right, we got one more update before we get off today, and we got a bunch coming on our next segment, whether tomorrow, more intel, or Monday morning. But we talked about this on our last episode yesterday. Baba Aladatun, the number 1 player in class of 2027, national number 1 ranked in that class, 6'10" combo forward out of Silver Springs, Maryland. Calipari offered him, Arkansas contacted him. First possible contact date for class 2027 was June 15th at midnight. Arkansas reached out. He might be, I think he was, the first class of 2027 player that Calipari extended a scholarship offer to as Arkansas's head coach. And then Calipari was courtside constantly to see him through the spring and summer with Team Durant playing up on the 17U level, right? And we saw him and Team Durant take on J.J. Andrews and Brad Bill Elite in the quarterfinals of the Nike Peach Jam. Just got blown out. Blown out. Alodot, struggling with physicality a little bit. He's got nice soft skills, can face up, can knock down some threes. Very talented, projectable, down the road kind of guy. But he announced that he's reclassed into 2026. We tweeted about that during the end of Nike Peach Jam that might happen. A lot of talk that it would. Now, fast forward 2 or 3 weeks later, he makes it public yesterday. We talked about it on the show yesterday, and we mentioned keep an eye on Arkansas here, because Arkansas, it's one of less than a handful of players out of that 27 class they'd offered and already started to kind of prioritize. Well, I've been efforting source information since our morning segment yesterday, and I'm told that the efforts that Calipari has put into this are twofold. Partly, regardless of what class he's in, Arkansas wants to be in it to win it, but also with an eye on the possibility that he was going to reclass to 2026, and Arkansas would prioritizing for 2026. So my source is telling me that he remains a priority as a reclass. You go, duh, number one player in the country in 27. I said yesterday I'd have him top 10, maybe top 5, but I said for sure top 10 for this class now. But that he not only remains a priority, but that Arkansas is thick in the mix here. You hear Gonzaga, some other schools getting visits soon. But now that he's in 2026, we add him to the mix. I'll have a confidence scale level addition for him soon. I need to get some more information on that. But I'm going to start out as a 5, right in the middle, just by the fact of knowing that aside from the reclass, aside from the existing Arkansas offer, Calipari has really put a lot of effort into this. And that's important to note. And so we'll see where this leads. Can Arkansas get him on campus? We know Fandion is a center. When you look at frontline recruiting, and most of the names we mentioned are so far today, are the wings, right? And guards. But here would be another frontline guy, not a center. I'll call him a 4-5 at the college level, probably a 3-4, similar to a Nate Amin in that regard for the NBA. Probably a 3-4 NBA, 4-5 potentially. I called Nate Amin a 3-4 at Arkansas. Alodot maybe a 4-5 at Arkansas, but 6'10", not the sniper I would say that Amin is, but he's got the soft skills. He's got nice craft putting the ball on the deck. I've watched him play in person multiple times. Really nice player. Obviously, if you're ranked number 1 in your class, you're at the top of the heap there. But we'll see where that goes. All right, nearly 30 minutes in. We're going to wrap things up. Let's keep an eye on Baba Alodot. Let's spell the last name for you. Otun. I butchered that. Oladotun. Again, 6'10". I've seen him referred to as a 7-footer. I think, just seeing him in person, I'd say 6'10". Maybe pushing it to even suggest 6'11", but I'm confident saying 6'10". And I really like, again, the skill set that this guy's under development. Obviously needs to get stronger, especially if you're going to think of him long-term, maybe as being able to help you some at the 5 at the college level. Stretch 4, certainly, and could come in if he's in 26. You hope that if you're Arkansas staff, that you get, that you have a great season, from Trevor Brazile. This guy might make a decision early before the season starts, but you've already got something. Look, here's what we've done to help Trevor Brazile. Look how he finished the season. Here's what the reports are from him coming out of the summer. Here's a guy that we've already helped develop, those soft skills, give you perimeter, give you some other stuff, playing above the rim, and I always forget is it Evan Mobley, the versatile all-league NBA guy, played his college career at USC, now been in the NBA for a few years, an all-pro, all-defensive guy. Evan Mobley, there might be some comparisons long-term. He might project a little bit like that as well. Of course, that's not someone that played for Calipari. All right, we're going to beat the 40-minute mark, just barely. Thank you for joining me on HogvilleNET YouTube Live. Tomorrow, Mika Murinen, Cole Clower, Jordan Smith Jr., Tay Kenny. I say tomorrow, it might be Monday. Mikel Bryce McCroman, new intel on him, more updates with him. Updates on Paulo Simeo and Elmir Javits and expected incoming arriving to campus information. And then a new 2027 Arkansas offer out to Anderson Diaz out of New York, in New York. We'll talk a little bit more about that tomorrow. So we got more intel for you, but we loaded it up today with I think the biggest news on several top 10-ish priority 5-star guys. Fandion, I've got him ranked 6th in my top 25. And the On3 update that came out the other day, we were so disappointed where JJ Andrews was, but they did a good job getting Deontay in the top 10. They got him ranked 9th. So at least 2 opinions there that he's a top 10 guy. I think some of the other ones will move him up when they update. Until next time, thanks for being here. Appreciate all of you. See you soon.